Hi, everything at your fingertips. The idea looks wonderful. The thought is very easygoing and reflects on the fact that you are lazy. Yes, you are lazy. Because the moment you withdraw yourself into this shell of wanting everything on your fingertips, you are necessarily withdrawing from the essential of moving yourself. Now, moving yourself is not just physically moving from one place to another or doing things with your hand. Moving also means you are interacting with people, you are not interacting with bots, with systems, you are catering to sensibilities of people. And what this does is it lets you question your own self. When you do this, you realize how good or how bad is a certain thought. How do you maintain a certain decorum? We read these days about Gen Z, a population between 1995 and 2010, finding it difficult to find jobs, finding it difficult to retain jobs, finding it difficult to communicate with people at the larger side of the picture and society. And we need to understand why is it so. It is barely 30 years or less that this population exists. For the world, this population is the most potential population that can actually deliver something. But if it is found to grapple with such ideas, then there's something to think about. This population lacks ability to adapt. This population lacks ability to uh, sensitize themselves to things that are there in the society beyond their own age compass. This population shudders from the idea of making efforts. Everything doesn't come on a Google, everything doesn't come out on AI, everything doesn't get solved by studying tutorials on a YouTube or shorts on Instagram. There is no shortcut to books. There is no shortcut to a paper, pen, or pencil. There's no shortcut to moving out of the house and meeting your neighbor or a few other people in the society. There is no shortcut to visiting a shop in your vicinity and purchasing your grocery. There's not even a shortcut to actually going out a little away from the town towards the fields and experiencing by your senses the touch, the sight, the smell, if feasible, the taste of things from the farms and fields. Everything being ordered across aggregator platforms, be it food, be it grocery, be it medication, and creating a world on social media, friends who you never meet, admirers who you never meet? What does it bring about? And why is it important? The first and foremost, what it brings about is lack of tolerance, which in medical terms, in Ayurvedic medical terms, is leading to two states. One is pure tamas, or complete withdrawal and kind of sadness, to say. I'll not use typical clinical terms here. Or it is making you aggressive, violent. Violent, not necessarily just physical, it could be verbal as well. The other thing that it is making you do is it has helped you create a fantasy world around yourself where you imagine something, you want something, you go to any of these platforms, pick up your choice, make a miserly saving, and you spend. This capability has allowed a shift from intellect to monetization. A lot of things cannot be monetized. A lot of things cannot be discussed in monetary terms. Everything finds its own space, and sometimes those experiences and that expenditure of time is essential. By not doing this physical effort, by not entering into this zone and so called working hours and extended hours and spending time working or anything else, you have disturbed your sleep cycles. You have disturbed your emotional management, the way your hormones react or make you react physically to different circumstances creates situations wherein prevalence of certain hormones or certain chemicals within the body has seen a rise compared to what it was a generation before. I don't mean to say that this is a bad idea, but how much to make use of it? Where to draw the line? Where do you say, yes, now I will go and make a shot of things on the street? Sounds activism. No. You don't have to be a crusader. You don't have to be an activist. The fact that you ordered food to somebody and he brought it to you, how many times do you realize that there was phenomenally a gap that could well have been cut down by yourself? You instead went to that restaurant, sat there, had your food, and came back. The time spent could be maybe, say, a fraction more than what it took for the food to arrive. But this would have allowed you to break from a monotone for that period, which otherwise exists while you keep surfing across your social media platforms, or you are stuck on your laptop, or you are stuck on your television doing nothing but in between just munching on something, could be popcorns. So the reality is that you are continuously adding to stress, because the moment you see that the delivery is getting delayed, you start scampering. People have become verbose, they have become loud, they have taken to being abusive. Lack of sensitivity has led to certain levels of degradation which were no more a part of the society. All this in Ayurvedic context is continuously taking you away from sattva. Now, I don't mean to talk on the theological sides or religious interpretations of the Tridosh. I don't. And when I say I don't. But anything that is becoming a driver for depression, for violence, for aggression, and that is perpetuating, it definitely is not healthy. Because, say for example, you get anxious, that anxiousness triggers certain metabolic pathways, and what does it do? Increase your heart rate, increase your muscle activity, even the skeletal muscles if you are very, very aggrieved. And that is stress, a very high amount of stress, which is not precipitated upon because of physical labor or strain that has been over a period. When you exercise, when you work out, and when these things happen, they are gradually happening over a period. So at the same time, at a very micro level, the body is gradually adapting to those fluctuations that are coming in. But this anxiety pattern is a spike, and just as I move my fingers, almost not to notice, the functions of your body also spike in the same pattern. That is much higher a stress than a gradual rise and a gradual fall. This has furthermore translations to understand, and it becomes a very, very extensive discussion. I'm not going into that at this point, but this is definitely translating into a lot of health issues individually and socially, and majority of them are centered around mental health. You have a world which is not of intellectuals, which is not of well-read, well-informed, well-interacted people, but you are being influenced by influencers. And who are influencers? Who, by means of manipulation on some words, some phrases known as keywords or hashtags, have assumed so much importance that their videos, that their commentaries are literally floating around, and somebody who is looking at and educating by social media alone leads to do with textbooks, finds them relevant, finds them true, and believes everything that they talk about is correct. You will hardly find them quoting references from books. It is to be understood that anything that is written has a far reaching effect than any other medium of communication. And anything written undergoes as much scrutiny, unlike anything spoken or visually shown. So, while it was a point that you were experienced and you were experiencing influence because of actions of people, because of their learnings, because of the time they had devoted and dedicated to their work. Now you are experiencing and you are being influenced by people who are perhaps barely out of the cradle in professional terms. Their only experience is social media posting. So, how apt would they be at their choice of words? Even the choice of literature that they have doesn't really come from a point where the writer is talking much about expression based on experiences from the society. Even those writings are largely figments of imagination, as they are called. I'm not a prolific reader, I'm not a very profound intellectual, but yes, I'm not the Gen Z as well. Problem for the larger section of the society today, which is somewhere established and is into their later halves of profession or has retired, is that these Gen Z population, they form a larger mass of the society, and since their numbers are large, the noise that they make is heard louder. And unfortunately, it's not just them that are plagued by inconsistencies, incompatibilities, by inability to adapt, and they make a fool of themselves because they live in a fantasy world that anything they do and anything that they say will be taken very appreciatively. And just to quote, you have episodes like Ranveer Alavadia. Now, to believe that comedy is Kapil Sharma is, in the present context, perhaps true. But if you talk to someone who is of an intellectual bent, would perhaps refer to Suren Sharma. If you were to believe that sport is Virat Kohli, somebody else would perhaps, equating a similar style, say, was Viren Sehwag. because of their individual approaches, because of their individual temperaments. Somebody who says that literature was, say, Chetan Bhagat, will perhaps be questioned by somebody like me to say, then if Chetan Bhagat was literature, then what was anybody, say, like Mark Twain? They are both imaginative writers. Or every other field, you can pick on your choices and see who are influencing what. The crux is that when you see people coming down talking about things and influencing you, and there is a phrase called body of work. In the modern day context, the body of work is about how many times your things have been viewed, or how many times your page has flashed. It's not about how many people have picked up what you said and read across. The depth is missing. These are things that bring about, in psychiatric terms, in Ayurvedic psychiatric terms, tamas and rajas, which clearly point towards clinically terms that do not associate with mental health in a healthy way. It is important that the schooling patterns, the education pattern, the modern day school teachers, they desist from use of social media, and then I mean Telegram and WhatsApp, for communication. First, their communication has to be within the classroom. 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 1.5 hours. Whatever the lecture time is not less. The modern day education model that is seen in India largely is that if a child has read, say, 3 chapters out of 10, going forward after an examination, he is not getting back to those 3 chapters. This has to stop. The promotion of the idea that you are sharing notes over WhatsApp instead of asking the child to mark it with a pencil or pen in his textbook is only visualization. Now, among learning techniques, everyone is not adept at only visual or only audio means of learning. A lot of people are adept at writing or use of the hand. Even researchers very recently from institutes like Harvard point to the fact that those who have this habit of writing and doing things by writing have a better memory retention. These small things have a lasting impact. I don't say YouTube learning is bad, but it's as good as being in the classroom. And to say that the textbook is not important does no good. YouTube is only good after you have read the text. A short is only good after you have gone through a detailed video. So, the modern concept with Gen Zs is shortcuts. Shortcuts mean you are skipping essential pathways through which a certain solution was arrived, through which an equation was derived, through which an expression was enhanced, and that process explains why a certain expression, why a certain solution, why a certain equation is necessary. Learning is about understanding those necessities, and productivity of learning is in refining those learnings. So if we do not want to see Ranveer Alavadias, we have to understand that our kids are definitely not exposed to the right thing. But to say that your kid will not use a mobile phone, or will not have an access to internet, or you will use screening things, that your child will only be exposed to a certain quality of content, everything is wrong. All those filters are again artificial filters. The real filter is experiential. Unless your child actually gets onto the field, fights with the kids of his age, listens to those abusers or retaliates with those abusers and faces the consequences of it, when all his five senses are almost involved, he will not learn what is to be done, how to react, how to adapt. This is the most important aspect of handling mental health and various issues, including anger and suicide, that are very strongly rising in today's world. Religious philosophy does not help. Putting kids to shame does not help. Driving a child a certain thought way only helps maybe monetization. But monetization is not learning, not education. It is only driving you to be a labor, skilled or unskilled, and allowing robots created by superminds who have also now a Frankenstein in the room to dictate life to you. Is it your choice? Is it how you want your kids to grow? You have to decide. Thank you.